all of those things do matter in terms of retention and as well in terms of attraction of talent. And in my experience, I had many people moving then to Amazon, Google, and so forth, while before they couldn't do it because we invest in their growth as an engineer as opposed to the developer. But as well, we had a tech stack that really enabled them to come grow.
How do we get people in the door and how do we keep them in the door? And in particular, does the tech matter? You touched on this a little bit earlier, Annie, and I'm sort of thinking, they're always like, oh, I'm thinking of moving because the tech's boring, or I want to go and use that new, for me it was Ruby on Rails about 10 years ago. Oh my God, everybody got obsessed with it and then it was a failure. So, but how do you deal with that? How do you sort of keep them in the building or get them in the building when maybe you're still using Java? You know, how does that work? Go on, Bruno, start us off.
So the tech stack is important for many people, right? And it's important. So you don't want to get behind, right? But I think there is something bigger than this. I think the conversation needs to be about growth and impact. So how am I growing personally and professionally, and as well measuring the impact that I'm having, right? But is factual that no one wants to work in COBOL these days, right? Well, there is a pool, for sure.
Careful, running our COBOL experts, but, you know.
There is a pool of them.
You get paid a lot now.
I know.
You're like,
But
you're a COBOL engineer.
the technology does bring, the tech stack does bring a different aspect to the whole role, right? It brings in multiple areas. One is learning the new tech stack. Another one is feeling part of the hype. It's all about serverless, it's all about whatever comes. All of those things do matter in terms of retention and as well in terms of attraction of talent. And in my experience, I had many people moving then to Amazon, Google, and so forth, while before they couldn't do it because we invest in their growth as an engineer as opposed to the developer. But as well, we had a tech stack that really enabled them to come grow. Another learning that I have is some tech stacks do push or do pull for a certain type of talent. So one of them is, for instance, Erlang. It's all about message passing. It's all about resilience and so forth, right? So you're going to find experts in that area that love Erlang. There is other technologies that will push for different things. So depending where you are, what you want to build, and the context of your business, you have to move all of that. But in my opinion, tech stack does matter. It shouldn't matter as much, though.
Great. Neil, did you? We're focusing on the COVID app, but it's your big thing, right? So, was that dictated to you guys? How the tech stack you should use? Could you be innovative? Did people come because of the mission or because of the tech?
Well, they came for the mission, but the tech did matter. We built the app, the iOS app in Swift. It was fully native, and the Android app, we went with Kotlin, and I don't think we could have done it in other technologies. I mean, I know there's the sort of platform independent stuff, and there's all those kind of debates, but I think it mattered to the engineers. They were passionate about what they wanted to build, and they needed to go as fast as they possibly could. If I'm there saying you've got to get this thing out, for the announcement next week, but I'm making them use a tech stack which slows them down and they don't feel comfortable with, I'm just going to get it thrown back in my face. So, we let them choose, and it did matter. It mattered a huge amount.
Okay.
The back end less so. I mean, Amazon was chosen for us, but of course, again, we let the teams choose the tools they use to deploy, choose the approaches they use.
Okay, that's great. So, Dave and Rennie, I'm guessing you inherited some pretty large tech stacks, right? And Dave, you've done I think you were saying you're migrating two together, so now you've got competing tech stacks, or were they conveniently the same?
They were definitely not conveniently the same.
Okay.
So
They never are, by the way.
No,
Never.
so Ovo, cloud native, Scala, React type sort of tech stack. SSE is exactly what you would expect from a traditional big energy company. I mean, it's literally a tick sheet of Oracle, IBM, TCS, Infosys, everything you could imagine, that they would have. Now, the interesting thing for us, actually, what was helpful was the premise of the deal was we were stepping away from that to the Ovo stack. So that made that much easier, but we had to up-level the Ovo stack. But actually, to go back to the question, I mean, I I really, often think of the engineers, developers, whatever level they've reached. In some ways, as some of my most important customers, right? I mean, that's where our innovation, that's where our future value comes from. Every sort of outcome that we meet, usually has a reasonable life, and so it's really important to maximize, what we can do there. So, actually, things I've done in the past, I mean, it was always fascinating back in the day when we were more in the office. They can walk over and tap you on the shoulder and tell you something's great or tell you something's rubbish, right? And so, in some ways, much more than your kind of regular customers can. You've got lots of data on your regular customers, but it's not the same as an engineer walking over and tell you something's not good enough. And so, actually, we really started to think about tech stack almost like a product in itself. I use techniques like running NPS with our engineers, and so. And, it's actually more about how the score progresses than the actual score itself, and the kind of commentary that you get along with it. It tells you, hey, let's think about this, let's think about that. And actually, at OVO, we use a tool called DX, which, is an interesting one. It's like an engagement survey, a type approach, but specifically for kind of tech and engineering. And so it gives us, again, a kind of, a both qualitative and quantitative kind of data point about how we're progressing on a journey as a tech stack. So for me, typically the engineers that you want to see are the ones that really want to have impact and make a difference. And they're typically the ones who get most frustrated when the tech stack's holding them back. And obviously they're part of solving that, but you've got to support them with that, and you need data to kind of make sure you're pushing it in the right way.
So Rennie, finish us off on this question with that, the point about, you might get to a point where some of your cleverest people are frustrated with the tech stack, and maybe you're committed to that tech stack, maybe that's where it does the right thing for the business, it's aligned to everything you need. Do you just let them go? What happens there?
Well, if you're brave.
Right.
So I'll share a little story. When I first joined at CTM, there was a lot of challenge around our CMS and how it was working and how frustrated it was, and a decision was made. When it's in the third person that no engineers were involved in it. A decision was made that the savior of our life would be a large professional company who I won't say who they are because they might be in the room. But anyway, it was very, the people who worked with this particular product, that's what you did. Most of them were contractors or consultants. It didn't thrill the engineers. They felt like it wasn't moving them. Our SEO was struggling. Our performance was struggling. Our websites had all kinds of Google Analytics problems, or not Google, what are the Core Web Vitals issues? Nothing was progressing. And whenever you talk to technology people, they were like, oh, we hate it. No, nobody asked us, they just bought it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why are we doing it then? Right? So I went to a couple meetings and I said, I'm sorry, why are we doing this? Like, the business case made no sense, because I said that's not even real, because we can't support it because we have to keep hiring contractors. So we need to go recut the business case, and it's not going to do all that stuff. And I think we should turn it off. We've spent billions, blah, blah, blah. Sunk cost, that's not how it works. I think we should turn it off. We turned it off. The flip side of that is the engineering team are much more engaged. They're working much better with their product engineers. We have moved our SEO quite significantly in less than a year. Our Core Web Vitals are all in the green. Just changed. We have a new leader for SEO, and he was very quick to say, we could not do what we are doing if we would have stayed with that other stack. So sometimes stack matters, and sometimes the engineers are right, not always, but sometimes they're right. And you should be brave and say, it's not working, it's not delivering on what we thought it was going to deliver. Oh, by the way, it took them like 3 years to implement it.
Yeah.
Like 3 years, and it still wasn't delivering. I'm like, stop. This is garbage. Stop.
So thank you. I think the lesson there for us as technology leaders is we have to listen to our guys maybe a couple of times to try and understand what it is that they're saying, maybe test it out, maybe push back a little bit. But then to your point about switching off something which is, a sunk cost of millions, but then it changed your SEO, right? So it probably made multi-millions more than the sunk cost you'd already gone. And that's bravery. I like the use of the word bravery there.